Welcome, everybody. It's Lisa Kanda with Elkay Advisors, and I am very excited to have you joining us. Me being Lisa Kanda and Olivia Nieto. Olivia is my intern. She's been working with me for almost a year. We were just having a quick chat before we went live, and it's been a wonderful experience so far. But what's interesting is in this past year, Olivia's learned a lot. And what came of that is a blog post that was recently written by Olivia out of some of the things that she's discovered in working with me and working on our social media and marketing in general. So after we wrote the blog post, or she wrote it, let me rephrase that, I edited, we thought that it might be interesting to hear from the mouth of Olivia, like why we brought this up and why this was important today. So let's get started. So welcome, Olivia. Why don't you say hello to everybody?
Hi, how are you all?
Hey, so first of all, the topic of the blog is what business needs to know about Gen Z. Now you're a Gen Zer, right? So that's big piece of why we're doing it. But the Gen Z generation are those who are born after the year 1995, if you did not know this. And that's the group that's now coming into the workforce. So that's why this is so relevant right now, because our workforce is changing and the Gen Z generation is different. But I think they can get a bad representation sometimes, or a misunderstanding, I think is more what it is, in my opinion. And what this blog post really brought to light was some assumptions that people make about this generation, as well as some of the misunderstandings that have happened because of assumptions that, of how you were brought up. So let's go ahead and talk a little bit more about what made you explore this topic to get started? Because you really brought this to me and thought this is something I want to write about, that it's been coming up in my circles. So why don't you explain to our audience what made you decide this?
Yeah. So one day my friends and I just happened to be sitting in the cafe actually, and we were discussing how some of us have internships, some of us are getting ready to graduate soon. And we were discussing just entering into the workforce and some of the assumptions that people have about our generation, some negative, some positive, but mostly regarding around our innate use of technology and how we've automatically just grown up with it so that we should know how to use it. And as we were sitting there talking, we came to the conclusion, no, we actually really don't have this broad understanding of everything technological. It's just the fact that we went from barely, not any technology, but throughout the time just growing up, we ended up with iPhones and we ended up with like very complex computer systems, and just Word alone has changed so much. And now it's just expected to be used, and how people just think that we know how to use it automatically, but yet no one's really teaching us how to use it. We just kind of figure it out on our own. So.
And it sounds like a really important conversation that you had with your friends. But then how did that translate to the work that we do together? Because I think there's definitely that the same track, and we've discussed it a little bit, but how did that really fit with our work together?
Yeah, so I quickly learned that I probably have more just familiarity with some of this compared to my classmates because of the work that I do with Lisa. And so one of those things especially is using just this one system we have that will help to like schedule out our social media and figuring out how social media works in the way it does. And that's another focus of it, is people just expecting that we just know it. And going into this internship, I had no clue. Some of the background information, some of the processes, I had no idea. And I'm right in the prime area of people expecting me to know all there is about social media. And I was like, I don't even know how it functions, let alone how to be successful in it. And so definitely, I feel like just through this internship alone, I've learned so much invaluable information, and just like going into the workforce once I graduate and knowing, okay, like I know how it works, I know how it functions now. But if I had not had this opportunity with Lisa, I would have no idea, quite literally, because even in business school, they talk about how important social media is and social media presence is, and yet they don't tell us anything. There's no class, there's no subject during class that they talk about it. And so we just kind of go in blindly into the workforce. So, yeah.
And thank you for the kind words about our working together. But I think what really makes sense in what you're saying, in that that assumption that, well, because you know how to use the tool personally, that you can translate that to a business. And in a business function, it's very, very different. You're talking about brands, you're talking about building awareness, you're talking about systems and processes. It's just not jumping on and doing a quick video or TikTok or
No.
a reel, or, you know, all the things that you use it for, which really have some relevance to a business,
Mhm.
but it's just a small, small piece of the bigger, bigger picture. So I
Absolutely.
appreciate you recognizing that. And of course, it does take, I think, and as a side note, if you are a Gen Zer and you are working with a company or a business and they're investing in you, you also need to have that openness and willingness to learn and to say, okay, I don't know all this, and I need to listen
Absolutely.
to those folks who are doing this, and learn from them, because it is different. So I think that's another piece of it, is that you are willing to learn. That's what makes this work for us, is you're willing to make mistakes. You're willing to just try and do something and then learn from it. And then, as we were just talking before we came live, our systems now just work so well. And it's wonderful to see that improvement for both of us. The way I want my business to run, and my social media to run, but how now the ease you have with it, because you've learned and you're implementing and are willing to take those chances. So thanks for that. Let's talk a little bit about the research you did, because it was important when you wrote this blog post to just not make it be what you thought in your head, right?
Yeah.
Just that, you had this conversation with your friends and your colleagues, and it's a little bit more than that. And when we discussed when you brought it to me, and I said, well, you need to do some research. So what kind of research did you did? And just kind of, I know a lot of this is in the article, so we're going to actually ask those of you who want more information to jump into the blog post and read it in detail. We'll provide that link here, but just give us an overview of the way you did some research for this.
Yeah, so going into it, there was a lot of editing, a lot of changes to the initial blog post. But the way that I did my research was my own personal research, was looking into articles that talked about, one, my generation entering into the workforce, and two, just the look at how technology is already assumed. And so a lot of the articles I actually found as well focused more on, oh, Gen Z does know how to use technology, and that's why they're special in this regard. And I was like, there's not enough information about how Gen Z has to adapt to learning technology and social media in a business mindset and not an entertainment mindset. So I really had to do some digging for that. And then the second way I did research was through peer surveys. And I actually used Instagram stories, the polls and everything, and questions to connect with my generational classmates, I guess, to see how they interact with social media, how they use it, and just to see if they even know the difference between entertainment social media and like creating a brand social media. And of course, no surprise, not a lot of them did, which a lot of companies end up hiring younger people to look into that social media area, but we don't know. And so that was a common thing that I found throughout my research, was that people my age don't actually know really how to set up a brand, to create it, to even make it like important or special in a way that would stand out from everything else. And so it was interesting seeing the responses. And like Lisa already pointed out, we did put a lot of that into the blog post itself. So yeah, it was interesting seeing that I wasn't the only one, and just my small group of friends, like, okay, no, this is a generational thing that we need to learn how to solve.
So I love that you did primary research with your direct peer survey, and you did secondary research with looking at some articles to back up and or refute what you found. So more of that's in the blog post for sure. Let's talk about, like, what was one or two of the significant or surprising things you discovered while you were writing this blog post and doing some of your research.
Yeah. The most surprising thing was having just to be the lack of knowledge about how Gen Z really doesn't know how to differentiate between entertainment and technology, or building a brand, excuse me. It was just kind of assumed that we knew, like I've already said. But another thing that really stood out to me was the fact that a lot of my generation is actually scared to enter the workforce, because we do feel unprepared. We do feel like there hasn't been a lot of information provided to us. It's just, oh, you graduate college and then you go off. But we really don't feel like we've been prepared for the workforce. And that just kind of tied into the technology aspect of it as well. I do feel some similar feelings towards that. Of course, like I feel like, oh, this is me when I was reading a lot of stuff. Just because I know it's becoming an adult and figuring out, oh, this is how the world works. No one told me. So just kind of seeing that and realizing I'm not the only one. So maybe we do need to bring this up a little bit more so that our generation isn't blindsided. We can go into the real world and we become the next generation of workers and growers and thinkers.
I think to your point is that for businesses having conversations with their workers, and, even when you're hiring, to even determine where those gaps of knowledge might be. Not that it's a negative, but it's an understanding of, okay, technology. You're not afraid to use technology. You just need to know how to use it the correct way. That's a little bit different from your older generations who are actually literally afraid of using technology. So for businesses watching this, and I think it's a really relevant point is, you have a workforce coming in that's not afraid to play with it. They just need some direction and some guidance on how to use it in the way that will, like you said, not for entertainment, but for building your brand and your business. And there are different ways of doing it, but there's a lot of valuable things that come from their innate ability to use technology. So it's really coming with that open-mindedness on both sides, I think. Is how it's going to be established a win-win when both people are willing to say, okay, we're going to figure out how to do this so that we totally utilize our Gen Z capabilities, right? Of just ready to dive in and try something new because they're not afraid to touch it. And then, but also giving the guidance of, but here's the process, or here's a system, or here's how we talk about a brand, or here's how we explain what a brand is in regard to the not being very, very careful not to be too conversational or too informal, because depending on the brand, of course. But I think there's a lot that we can learn from each other that needs to open those doors. But I appreciate you just sharing a little bit of some of the significant things and some of those fears, by the way, or a lot of people have those fears. I think it's fears and just and this is my opinion, of misunderstanding, that there are a lot of assumptions that have just been built over time. And I think there's fear on two ways. There's a fear of the person, depending on their age, of the technology, because they don't know how to use it. And then there's fear on the side of the worker, the Gen Zer, who knows how to use the technology, but not implement it in the business. So it really needs to be a better understanding of how to work together. And a mutual respect of how to work together, I think, is a really big piece of it. So we're going to wrap things up here. We're going to make this short and to the point. Definitely, if you want to read more, read the blog post. We're going to link it to this video so that you can read the whole thing. But we're going to wrap it up with, what words of advice would you give businesses that hire Gen Z workers?
Yeah, so definitely have patience. We are quick learners. We know how to pop in and go into something. And as Lisa said, we're not afraid to try something new and figure out how it works. Absolutely not. We are quick learners, but we are feeling a little daunted with certain processes. It just has to click. So just be patient. We're learning, absolutely. And just know that your Gen Z worker does want to improve. They do want to grow. Like, they want to be the one to impress at the end of the day. Like, that is a fast learner. That's someone that I can trust to know this process. Absolutely. And we're coming. We're ready, obviously scared, but we are ready to enter into the workforce. And so we are definitely a viable option to help you, your business grow, your brand grow. We are wanting to be a part of that. We're excited to.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for first of all, bringing this to me as your idea, and for your in-depth, the knowledge of figuring out what businesses really needed to know, and sharing that, because I think this is really important information, and your enthusiasm behind it. It's always a pleasure working with you, Olivia. I'm so glad that you're on my team. And no one take her away from me. When she's ready to move into the workforce full time, we'll have different conversations. So before I wrap up, Olivia, just tell the audience again, because we didn't go into this, where you're at school, what you're majoring in, give you a little bit of background of what you do and where you are right now in your career.
Yeah, absolutely. So right now, as you all know, I am the primary intern for Elkay and Lisa. I am also getting my dual degree in my MBA and my undergraduate in marketing. I do play on the softball team here at Cairn University, so there's always something going on in my life. Most importantly, I'm just trying to learn, and I'm really excited to enter into the workforce, as scared as I am because of the fact that it's almost here. I'm a senior, which is crazy to think about. But always busy, always ready. But I do enjoy this time to be able to learn and grow, that especially Lisa has provided me, taking me on as her intern, and just knowing that everything I learned is invaluable information and nothing that I wouldn't have been even aware of if I hadn't been given this opportunity. So thank you, Lisa, for taking me on and keeping me for as long as you have, because I can't believe it's about to be a year. It's crazy.
It has been, but great work. We're going to wrap things up. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Again, if you want to read the entire article, we're going to link it to this in the description. What business needs to know about Gen Z. Thank you, Olivia, my Gen Zer. You've taught me a lot as well. We appreciate you being a part of the Elkay team, and we will see you all soon. Take care.
Bye.